What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the YellaWood 500 at Talladega Super Speedway for Sunday, October 1st, around 2 p.m. Eastern. What more can you ask for? A playoff race, a Super Speedway, should be chaotic, even if it isn't. Should be some pretty fun racing, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are as well. But anyway, if this happens to be your first time here, which I highly doubt since we're full swing in football mode, my name is Chris Pennell, and I break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, or even if you don't, consider liking the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or mean to me in the comments, call me ugly. I don't really care either way, but I would love to hear from you. And really quick, let me sell out a bit. I do have to mention the sponsors of the show, Prize Picks and Underdog. And as of right now, if you're a new user on either site, promo code CPEN will get you a deposit match bonus up to $100. And both sites offer promos all the time, whether it be Lamar Jackson over 0.5 passing yards or Prize Picks, with their Taco Tuesdays, Flex Fridays. Awesome sites, highly recommend both. Check it out. Again, use promo code CPEN with the link down below in the description or the pinned comment, and make sure you tell them I sent you. All right, so talking strategy here for Talladega. Typically, these strategy portions right here are kind of boring because we're at an intermediate track or a short track, so it's either 2 dominators or 3 dominators for the most part. But we get a little bit different at these super speedways, so the strategy is at least a little bit fun to talk about, and this is where we can find our edge. Because I'll tell you right now, anybody out there tells you they know what's going to happen here at Talladega or Daytona, these kind of tracks, a straight out lie. I have no idea what's going to happen, but what I do know is how optimal lineups are constructed, and that's how we gain our edge, because people are going to build bad lineups. I couldn't give you an exact percentage of how many lineups are going to be dead on arrival, but it's going to be a lot more than a regular track would be, because people are going to roster these guys up front thinking they're getting the dominator points, they're getting the winner, and that is the absolute wrong way to build at these types of tracks. So if you were someone like me that builds a lot of lineups, like 150, and you use my optimizer, or really any optimizer out there, you can build groups, or you can hand build within these groups. You just have to keep track of it in your head. So what I like to do is with these starting positions, because these drivers don't matter. I mean, yes, obviously some are better than the other, but anybody and everybody can get caught up in a wreck. Equal chance there. Obviously, though, the guys that are riding up front, jockeying for position, more likely to be in a wreck, which happens to be the better drivers. So what I like to do, strictly on starting positions, don't care about the car, equipment, anything like that. If you are starting 1st through 12th, I want 0 to 2 drivers. If you are starting 13th through 24th, I want 0 to 3 to 4 drivers. Depends on your personal preference there. And if you are starting 25th on back, I want at least 3 of those drivers, could be up to 6 in all of my lineups. Now, Daytona and Talladega are a little bit different. Both are obviously chaotic and both are capable of producing the big one. Although we have seen in the past, Talladega can be a bit more tame, but this is a playoff race and guys are going to be hungry for points. So compared to a spring race, I would assume we get potential more carnage for this one. And Talladega went very well for me early in the season, so I feel like I used probably all of my luck up for the year at Talladega, because you definitely need luck on your side. You can build the best lineups ever, but let's be honest, you're still going to need a lot of luck. But overall, again, no one knows what's going to happen here, but what you can do is set yourself up for success based on the types of lineups you are building. All right, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown, I do have to mention one thing first, and that is, of course, Patreon offering their free week trials. So if you're going to come and check out all the extra content that I don't show you on YouTube, projections, sim scores, my article going over cash games, tournaments, just breaking down the entire slate. The Discord community, which is active 24/7, although this time of year we're more so in NFL. But I do cover other sports as well, including football. So when I come and check out all of that extra content, links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that, completely free for a week. And if you like it, you can stay. If not, tell me to kick rocks. I don't care either way, but I would love to have you. But anyway, let's get into it here. And we have an unfamiliar face up top with Brad Keselowski at $10,500 on DK. 13.5 over on FanDuel, starting in 5th, opened up as the odds-on favorite to win this race. These are the odds like since yesterday. Now these are not most up to date, but I did see Brad down to 850 on DraftKings this morning, which is insane. Like, I realize he is amazing at Talladega, and yeah, he's pretty up high in the ranks for me. But to bet anybody at 850 at Talladega is insane, absolutely insane. So either way here, and I like the way the pricing is, especially over on FanDuel this week. Like, they have Kyle Larson at $6,500, and I'm not even tempted by that. Like, hopefully that draws in ownership, because the guy just has an awful history at these types of tracks. But the way the pricing is on both sites this week, but especially on FanDuel, I think they did a pretty good job. Not that it's really going to matter too much, because pricing never does at these types of tracks, but it should make ownership at least somewhat interesting to think about this week. But anyway, we have a bunch of studs up top here. We have the 2 RFK boys, which obviously have done well. They won the most recent Super Speedway race as BK pushed Chris Buescher to victory lane, which was nice because I was holding a 22 to 1 ticket, so I'll always appreciate him for not trying to win that race. Then we have the two Penske boys, Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano. Now, the problem with 3 of these is that they are starting pretty close to the front. Now, if this is Daytona, I typically write off almost everybody starting inside the top 10. But at Talladega, that's where I get a little bit more tempted to kind of sway forward and roster some drivers starting closer to the front. Just the kind of way I like to build here at Talladega. So even though they are starting really close, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, I will have some sprinkles of exposure in case they win the race, because I would say there's a decent chance for it. And when I say decent chance, my projections right now, I think I have them around 8 to 10%. So that should at least reflect somewhat in my builds. Not completely, but to a degree. Joey Logano starting in the front row, that makes it a bit tougher for me. Is he able to dominate this race, lead 100 laps and win? Yes, it's certainly possible, but this scenario of that happening is pretty unlikely for that boat to hit, because yes, Joey Logano could dominate half this race, but if he gets caught up in a wreck and finishes 31st, none of that matters, because the dominator points are not going to add up like they would at a regular track like Bristol. Or even last week where we saw Kyle Larson absolutely dominate the race for a while at Texas, wrecked out, but still got a good chunk of points because he had those dominator points baked in his floor. So I'll be decently low on these top 3 guys, but Blaney starting in 10th will probably get the most love. And then we have Chris Buescher, $10,000, our most recent winner at a super speedway. He's starting in 24th. We know he's a good super speedway racer, and he's probably going to link up with Brad, and these two are basically unstoppable when they're linked up. So I don't know what it is, but I mean, they just run the exact same almost every single week. So out of everybody in the 10K range, Chris Buescher is going to project the best starting in 24th, but at the same time, he will probably have the most ownership if he does not. I'm not your ownership projections or anything like that. So if he ends up being under owned, I definitely would highly recommend being overweight in tournaments. And now that I think about it, him being at $10,000 might make him go slightly overlooked. So that could be an interesting tournament target. Dropping down to the 9K range, we have Denny Hamlin starting in 12th. We know how good he is at these types of tracks. Very similar play to Ryan Blaney, where they're just starting really close to the front, so I can't have too much exposure, but they are potential race winners, so they need to be in the player pool. William Byron's in the same boat as those two. We have Chase Elliott, $9,300. He's starting in 23rd, going to be a very popular play at that price point. Plus, every time we're at a super speedway, Elliott's always going to end up being popular. Now, I just want you to keep in mind, he will have a decent amount of ownership, and with him starting in 23rd, while they don't have quite the name value, guys like LaJoy, Haley, Hocevar, Gillen, Burton really are not that far off as similar plays. Now, projection systems are not going to be the same, similar to mine, because, I mean, Elliott, just with his Vegas odds and all the numbers he's had at super speedways, he's going to project much better. But just keep in mind, if you're hand building or just even with your optimizer, you can play around with that with randomness and things. They're really not that far off in play. So if you're just trying to get lower ownership and you already have a chalky lineup, instead of playing Chase Elliott, leave 5K on the table and play Todd Gillen. It's really not much of a difference. Bubba Wallace starting in 9th. We know how good he is at super speedways. Throw him in that same pool as Byron, Hamlin, Blaney, where they're starting around 8th through 12th, and they have race winning upside. Kyle Larson is always an auto fade at super speedways, especially when he starts in the top 5. I really hope people are interested in his price tag on FanDuel at $6,500 because I want no part of that. If he happens to win the race, I will take the L, but he's had a large sample size of super speedway races, and they tend to never go well. So far this year, looking at the sample size, the 5 race sample size we're looking at for recent track history, average finish of 26.4, running position of just inside the top 20, with only one top 5 finish and really only one top 15 finish. And if you look to a 16 race sample size at recent super speedways, average finish of 24.8, one top 5, and it's just really bad. 6 top 20s, 4 top 15s. So I'll be passing on Kyle Larson. Drop into the 8K range. We have a slew of high-owned plays here with Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. All these guys have had super speedway success. And shout out to Kyle Busch. Last time we were at Talladega, hit a nice 18-1 ticket on him, got the win at the very end over Ryan Blaney. So I'll be forever grateful to Busch for that. And he is at 20-1. Well, he's now down to 16-1, but me and Sean in Discord, we hit him at 20-1. So I felt pretty good about that, especially with the positive line movement. Didn't qualify well, but pretty much in a similar starting spot as he was in the spring race. So all these guys are playable. Chastain, cash lock. Ricky Stenhouse, probably a cash lock starting in 35th. Busch, he's like a fringe cash play, but definitely someone I'll have exposure to in tournaments. But at that price point, that starting position, the ownership will be high, so you do have to be worried about that. Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, two very similar plays there. If I had to pick one, I would prefer Bell. He tends to have some pretty good speed at these super speedways. Is able to run up front. It's just a matter of being able to finish, but I could see Bell being sneaky due to the fact that he's starting right by all those three major place differential plays. Daniel Suarez starting in the back, similar play to Chastain, Busch, Ricky Stenhouse, so you can throw them in the same exact group there. And if you don't play them in cash games, I don't mind that. And over on FanDuel, really cheap, $5,500, so it's really easy to fit in. And then Martin Truex Jr., typically not the best driver at super speedways, although he's going to have to pick up some points here and put himself in a good position to set up for next week at the Roval, which I think he's got a better shot over there. But starting at 16th, pretty much same exact category as Bell and Reddick. And you just really can't go too in depth on these drivers because no matter how good they are or bad they are at these types of tracks, all really just comes down to starting position. So you just kind of have to group them together. Dropping down to the 7K range, we have one of my favorite tournament plays every single time we're at a super speedway. And he is exactly the same play every single time. Eric Jones, $700, $8,200 on FanDuel. Starting at 26, I swear, every single time we're at a super, he starts either 24th or 26th. You can fact check me on that. And I honestly have no idea, but I feel like every single time we're talking about him starting in this exact same starting position. So I'm going to write him up in the tournament article like I always do in this spot. And he's a really good super speedway driver. I believe he was optimal in the spring. I forget exactly where he finished, but obviously it was a pretty good performance from Eric Jones. I think he might have been top 5, top 6, if I remember correctly. But like him here, definitely a good super speedway driver. And not that it matters here, but Legacy has definitely found some speed over the past couple of months, since they kicked Noah Gragson to the curb. Alex Bowman starting in 20th here, really cheap over on FanDuel. At super speedways, he's kind of like William Byron. It's either boom or bust. So if he's not bust here, I mean, Bowman can always be a top 10 contender. We know Hendrick's got speed. It's just a lot of them like to be magnets for wrecks. Eric Almirola, auto fade on the pole. I don't care if he leads 100 laps, as long as he doesn't win this race or finish top 2. And all these cheap plays place differential plays don't hit. Really, really good chance Eric Almirola is not in the optimal lineup. Kevin Harvick, $7,300. Probably just not going to have too much interest here starting in 11th. It's going to be tough to get there. He's kind of in that same group as Hamlin, Blaney, Byron, Keselowski, but Bubba Wallace. The thing is, though, he's not as good of a super speedway driver, not really one that tends to get up front and dominates races. Now, the finishes aren't too bad for Kevin Harvick. If you're looking at the overall numbers, average finish at 15th, running position, pretty solid. Actually, one of the better running positions in the entire field so far this season. But even then, not in love with Harvick. He is a tournament flyer if you're building 20 to 150 lineups, but that's probably as far as I would go. Michael McDowell, $7,100. He's starting at 18th. Good super speedway driver. Starting mid-pack, though, so I don't really see him having much ownership. So if you want to be like slightly overweight on McDowell just for ownership purposes, I get it because he still offers you some PD upside. Austin Dillon, probably going to pass there, starting in 14th. Like, I don't want to call him an auto fade because we've seen him win super speedways before, but starting in 14th is pretty tough to get to. Ty Gibbs at $1,600. He's starting in 22nd, starting mid-pack. It's kind of an ugly spot to be in, so the ownership will probably be pretty low on Ty, but I don't hate it for GPPs. Cindric, I'll pass. I mean, he's the same play as his teammates, but I'd rather have his teammates, to be honest. A lot needs to go right for Cindric to end up being optimal. AJ Allmendinger's firmly in play starting in the 30s, and we've actually seen him have a decent amount of success racing the super speedways and typically offers you place differentials. So I'm definitely in the Dinger train. If you don't play him in cash games, I'm fine with that as well. Briscoe, no thank you. Throw him in the banishment, the same as Eric Almirola there for where he's starting. Ryan Preece, I like the whole Talladega Nights thing they're going with Briscoe and Preece, but it could have been any other driver, and I think it would have been a lot cooler. It's just two drivers that no one really has much interest in there. Then we have LaJoy, who is probably going to be a cash game lock here starting in 36, just continually puts up great numbers at these types of tracks. Justin Haley, usually like him in tournaments because he's starting like around 18th, 16th, something like that. Now that he's starting 30th, I mean, just puts him firmly in play, but the ownership's going to be a lot higher, but is a good super speedway driver. Hocevar starting in 38th. He's starting dead last, and I keep saying a lot of guys are cash game viable, but we have so many guys starting pretty far back that I did not notice. This is my first time rolling through the slate here. So you have Chastain in 32nd, Stenhouse in 35th. You have Dinger in 31st, LaJoy in 36th, Hocevar in 38th. If you want to make that your cash game lineup, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I forget if that was 5 or 6 drivers, but it's definitely not a bad start. Gillen, 17th, fine tournament play. Like I said, I mean, Gillen, Burton, they don't have the name value, Chandler Smith, but they could easily be better plays than Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, all those guys, very easily. So do not write these kind of guys off. And it always makes sense at these types of tracks to be underweight on chalk and overweight on the guys that are showing more leverage. Like in my sim scores, it's a pretty big week for that for me. Like if a guy's just under-owned in the back or mid-pack, I'm just going to be way overweight on them compared to being overweight on the chalk plays with the sheer amount of variance we have at these types of tracks. So just brushed up on Burton there. Riley Herbst just starting too far up for me. Gonna have to pass there. Chandler Smith, similar plays to Hocevar with Joy, like in that same category there. Yaley, if there's massive carnage. Like at Daytona, I always play these bumps, but Talladega, I'm not usually as high on them, but they're still 100% in play. But like, for example, if I had 15% at Daytona, I usually play like 8 to 10% at Talladega, just built a little bit differently for this track specifically. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope you did enjoy. Even if you didn't, consider liking the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, anything like that, leave them down below. I'm more than happy to get back to you. Also, I'm still in the process of moving into my new office/studio. So if you notice any echo issues, hopefully that'll be fixed because I did get acoustic panels because I hate having bad audio. I did get a new camera, so hopefully this looks a little bit better, more crispier. If not, let me know, but we're working on it. Hopefully it gets all set up, and by next season when we start doing our streams, we'll be fully good to go. I appreciate y'all listening, and I'll see you all next time.